All right, so in today's math lesson, it is a review. So our math goal is to practice adding and subtracting mixed numbers with an uncommon denominator. Again, remember, this is a biggie. This is what this whole unit's all about. And this is a big standard in fifth grade. So write down what you know, and hopefully you already know a lot of stuff, okay? So let's review. So we talked about finding a common denominator. Remember, always look to see if the lowest number goes into the lowest denominator goes into the biggest denominator. And if it does, well, then you found your least common denominator. If it doesn't, you skip counting. Go 4 or 5 numbers out and see if they have something in common. And lastly, if you've gone out 4 or 5 and it doesn't work, then just use the opposite denominators to multiply together to find a common denominator. This will always work, but remember, this is your last resort because it does not always give you the lowest common denominator. Okay, so use that as your last resort. I can't specify that enough. Okay, all right, so again, we've already just reviewed number one in the previous slide. And remember, you first add or subtract the numerator unless you're subtracting and you have to borrow from the whole. Okay. Then you would add or subtract your wholes, right? But remember, if the numerator is bigger than the denominator in your fraction, then you got to turn that into a mixed number, and then that's going to be added on to your whole. All right, let's look at an example. What's the difference between the greatest and least weight shown on this line plot? So it's just a little bit the same thing, but we're looking at a line plot. So I got to find the greatest and the least weight shown. So the greatest weight shown, 1 1/4. The least, 7/8, because I have 1 on 7/8. And so the difference, remember what does difference mean? You're right, subtract. So go ahead and try that. Do 1 1/4 minus 7/8 and see what you get. All right, and hopefully you got 3/8. So I went ahead and rewrote it vertically. I'm not going to do it the other way. I'm just going to do it this way. So I found, is 4 going to 8? Yes, I found my common denominator is 8. I don't have to do anything here because it's already in eighths. I got to multiply top and bottom by 2, gives me 2/8. I have 2. Can I take away 7? No. So I had to borrow from the whole. So now that's going to become a 0. So I have no wholes now. And since I have eights, I'm borrowing 8/8. So 2/8 plus 8/8 is going to give me 10/8, and I just subtract. 10 take away 3 is 7. 10 take away 7, sorry, is 3/8. Okay, so let's take a look at another line plot. All right, this line plot says for 3 weeks, Miss Duchette bought less than a pound. What's the combined weight of salad for 3 weeks? So are we going to have to add or subtract on this one? If you said add, you'd be correct. Why? Because it says the word combined. What's the combined weight of salad for 3 weeks that are less than a pound? So I want less than a pound. Do I want a pound? No, I don't want to include the pound, right? So 1, 2, 3. So 15/16 is less than a pound and 7/8 is less than a pound. So I want these 3 weeks together. So I'm going to go ahead and add those up. All right, so hopefully you got 2 and 3/4. So I added 15/16 and 15/16. 15 and 15 gives me 30/16. So then I needed to add 30/16 to my 7/8. I said, does 8 go into 16? Yes, so my common denominator is 16. 8 times what is 16? 8 times 2 is 16. So if I multiply the bottom by 2, I got to multiply the top by 2. 7 times 2 is 14. I added 30/16 plus 14/16, and I got 44/16. Now, my numerator is bigger than my denominator, right? So then what do I have to do? I have to divide because it's the same thing as 44 divided by 16. So I did it over here on the side. 44 divided by 16. 16 goes into 44 2 times, minus 32, subtract gives me 12, gives me 2 and 12/16, but I'm not done because I can simplify. So 12 can be divided by 2. Can 16 be divided by 2? Yes. But then I tried 3. Can 12 be divided by 3? Yes. Can 16 be divided by 3? No. So then I tried 4. Can 12 be divided by 4? Yes. Can 16 be divided by 4? Yes. So see, I divided both of them by 4 and I got 3/4. So then my answer would be 2 and 3/4 pounds of salad that Miss Duchette bought. All right, so try this one. Do 6 and 3/4 minus 4 1/2 and see what you get and come back to me. All right, so hopefully you got 2 and 1/4. I rewrote it. I brought the 4 1/2 down here. I said, does 2 go into 4? Yes, so 4 is my common denominator. Got to multiply top and bottom by 2 to get 4. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 take away 2 is 1. And then 4 for my denominator. 6 take away 4 is 2. 2 and 1/4. Okay, try this one. 1 and 2/3 plus 4 and 2/9. So try that one and then come back to me. All right, so I rewrote it. I bought my 4 and 2/9 over here. I said, does 3 go into 9? Yes, so that's my common denominator. So I left that alone. Change this one. 3 and times 3 makes 9. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 9. I'm not 9, sorry, 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So it gives me 6/9. 6 plus 2 is 8. 8/9. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 and 8/9. Okay, try this one. 3 and 3/10 minus 1 and 3/4. Try that one, then come back to me. All right, so if you solve this, hopefully you got 1 and 11/20. So first thing I did is I said, does 4 go into 10? No, 4 doesn't go into 10, right? So then I wrote down my multiples of 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, and I stopped. And then I wrote my multiples of 4, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and I go, oh, they have 20 in common, okay? So then I used 20 for my denominator for both of them. 4 times what is 25? I'm going to multiply both top and bottom by 5, gives me 15/20. 10 times what is 22? So I got to multiply top and bottom by 2, gave me 6/20. But I have 6. Can I take away 15? No. So then I want to go ahead and I borrowed 1 from my whole, and that gave me a 2. And since I have 20ths, I got to add 20/20, which is turns out to be 26/20. So then 26 minus 15 gives me 11/20. And then 2 take away 1 is 1 and 11/20. Now, if you use the opposite denominator and multiply together, if you use 10 and 4 and got 40 here, so then you would have to have reduced, right? Because I think you would have gotten 22/40, and then you would have to divide both by 2 to get your 11/20. So it's easier if you use your skip counting as opposed to using the opposite denominator. So that's why I'm telling you, don't use the opposite denominator. Use that as your last resort. Always try to do your skip counting because then it's so much easier because then it's already simplified. Okay. So what did we learn today? So hopefully it's been a review, right? So hopefully you reviewed, and so hopefully it's not that you learned anything new, but maybe you did. Maybe you caught something new that you hadn't thought of before. So maybe you learned a little trick, or you learned something, you know, you learned something. So hopefully you did. And if you didn't learn anything, if you already knew it all, just say, I already knew it. It got reinforced and now I'm better at it. Proof of learning by solving a problem. So do either an addition or subtraction with a mixed number, and then a reflection or a question.